What's up, party people? I'm back. It's your host, Sunny Ray, for the Sunny Ray Show. Thanks to our sponsors, Raz Rocket. Today I'm joined by Vihar. Vihar, how's it going, buddy?
Doing well, doing well. Thanks so much for having me, Sonny.
Yeah, no, I'm excited about this. I was, digging in terms of your past, and you've got quite an interesting story. So happy to roll up our sleeves and get right into it. Hey, in terms of time, how are we doing? Do you have a hard stop in 20 minutes, or can you go over
No,
by a few?
yeah, I can go over
Okay.
by a few.
Okay. Awesome. So is it true that you were dancing at the age of 5?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Always enjoyed sort of Bollywood dance and grew up with it in my life. So,
And you've been
I mean,
acting since 12?
yeah, I actually took a gap year from schooling to do acting full time. It was right
Crazy.
when I was like 14, 15 age range.
Competing in robotics, like winning national science fairs, excelling at math. I mean, you seem like you've got an interesting background. So what was it like growing up in Farmington Hills as this, sort of Renaissance kid?
Yeah, I would say I grew up in like Midwest Michigan, very, very suburban. How you imagine sort of lots of grass, open space, not too many buildings above like 3 floors. I don't think there's probably any in the town I'm from. And so it was kind of, I enjoyed it a lot. I got to explore a lot of things, and then also try a lot of my passions out, like you mentioned, like everything from like acting to robotics. It was a great place to grow up.
Sorry, I muted myself. We're gonna dive into your company, Orange Slice. So
Yeah.
you want to give people a bit of a one or two liner in terms of what we're gonna dive into at the second half of this, but I want to go kind of in your backstory, talk a little about AI and robotics. But before we do, let's give people a bit of a heads up in terms of what your company does.
Yeah, so now I started a company called Orange Slice, and we help people find customers. It was based off the hardest problem I faced with my last company that I ended up selling, which was getting customers was actually the most painful part. So we tried to make that a lot simpler, kind of using AI and having AI do a lot of the heavy work for teams in the sales space.
Can you just go a little bit? So, sorry, I've like dedicated, I don't know, maybe 20 years of my career to sales. So I'm curious.
Yeah,
I know I said we'd go deeper into it later, but can you just add a couple more sentences? I'm so curious.
Yeah, so kind of how we do that and the approach we take is now that we have sort of AI that can sort of scan the internet and ingest mountains of information, we can kind of take that burden off salespeople. You know, a common task I had to do in selling is constantly researching a person. You know, are they even a good fit for us? Should I even spend the time to reach out to them? I don't want to waste both of our times either. And so now with AI, we can kind of mass delegate that sort of research process and then figure out, okay, who's a customer that actually would buy my product, and then only talk to those certain people. And so that's kind of our approach to it. I think other people take a different approach of having AI just sort of outreach everyone. And so like that being the biggest lever in sales. But for us, we really don't see that as the future of sales. It'll be more of AI helping connect people that actually kind of need each other's product or services.
Interesting. Cool. So let's maybe go back. Yeah, I'm so happy to go into that deeper. But let's go back. I always find like talking about companies and AI and stuff without a bit of a backstory is a bit hollow and empty, right? At the end of the day, it's about humans. So tell us about your journey a little bit, yeah, before you got into AI and entrepreneurship. You said a little bit, but yeah, I would love to know more. Like, what was kind of your world view? How are you coming at this? Are your parents of Indian descent or?
Yeah, so my parents are originally from India, so I'm like a sort of first generation in the US here. And they're both engineers, come from an engineering background, and basically what life was I'd say pretty standard and of that sort of route. Um, was always sort of taught all the Indian values, I think at a young age, like go to school, study hard, all of those things. Entrepreneurship was actually not on the table for me when I was growing up, or what I really thought about I would do sort of long term. I think coming from an Asian background, it's like you're a bit more risk averse of, do something a bit more stable that, pays the bills, etc. So for me, actually, I was planning to go into finance right after college. And that's where I worked a little bit at JP Morgan. And so And then kind of during college, I was always entrepreneurial, but with no real sense of making it into a business. And I think some of my ventures, I tried so many things. I think I could tell you all the tar pit ideas I went through, but eventually some of them sort of caught fire, and I realized, okay, wait, this is something I can really do, and actually do full time. And that was kind of the story and the reasoning behind a lot of my childhood and where I am today.
Cool. So what happens next? Did you say you studied engineering as well, or what?
Yeah. So I studied, I think like any classic immigrant sort of overachieving kid. I ended up getting 2 degrees, one in business and finance, and then one in computer science. And basically, so I kind of had the
Cool.
optionality, but I was always interested in sort of finance personally growing up, and then always like a little bit of tech. So it was kind of the best of both worlds. And so, yeah, those are the things I studied in college.
That is awesome. I love that. Okay, and you went to school in Michigan, is that correct?
Yes, I also went to the University of Michigan. So I was born and raised there. I've spent basically 99% of my life, other than like school trips and vacations, in Michigan.
Cool. So my main kind of three topics that that I'm obsessed with almost for the better part of 2 decades is robotics. So I want to go back a little bit into your childhood story around the robots. I am obviously obsessed with AI, like I think most of my peers. And I think I don't know if you know, but I started India's first Bitcoin exchange. So when you brought up
Yeah.
JP Morgan, that brought up some memories. But yeah, just curious. Do you want to maybe comment on like the robotics obsession of yours? Like what kind of stuff were you tinkering with? What were you building?
Oh, so much stuff. I think at my heart, I'm more of like a hardware person than I am a software person. I think sometimes, just because it's nice to sort of see your creations come to life in reality. I built so much stuff as a kid, and I used to compete in sort of First Robotics, Next Robotics as a kid. I loved those series so much. I actually ended up doing a commercial for First Robotics later and before when I was an actor. Which was super fun and interesting, kind of mixing both of those passions. And yeah, for me, I built so much stuff. I built my own electric dirt bike as a kid. I sort of hacked together my own sort of soda stream before it came out because I just wanted pop as a kid, and my parents didn't allow soda in the house. So there's a bunch of contraptions I was always sort of building and tinkering with, but robotics is definitely has a close place to my heart.
Hey, by the way, I was a judge for the first robotics competition, so I know
Really?
that really well. In fact, I've even met Dean Kamen once or twice, and yeah, what an interesting story. Cool. Hey, but do you also agree that they say that hardware is called hardware because it's hard? Like, don't you
Yeah.
find it's almost in a league of its own when you're tinkering with software and stuff? That there's just so many more variables you need to be thinking about.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is maybe access to information for hardware is a bit harder. I think with software, you kind of have these great communities and websites like Stack Overflow and now ChatGPT that are so good and optimized for software. It makes it a lot easier to start building in that space. But yeah, I think I remember in hardware, it's just like it, so many different parts. There's not enough information on everything, and everything keeps changing as well. So it's always super hard to do, but I think it also makes it more rewarding when you finally complete a project like that.
And let me ask you something. So like I said, I spent 8 years in robotics before getting into Bitcoin in 2012, and I kind of left the space knowing that I would come back to it. And it was only when I saw ChatGPT and kind of what was happening with LLMs and deep learning that I was like, oh my god, like I need to spend time on robots again because something massive is about to happen. And yeah, it just felt like this tech that was, empowering these chat GPTs and the AIs of the world were going to find their way to hardware. Did you see a similar trend happening? And if so, are you capitalizing on it?
No, definitely. I think hardware with software is having a massive boom. There's so many sort of cool companies that are now enabled by ChatGPT in the hardware space that it's kind of revolutionary too. Because finally we have like a non-deterministic way of decision making through like these LLMs. So you get to have a lot more because that used to be a massive bottleneck. Like it's very hard to, code or create this decisions if it's all deterministic. You can't possibly think of an edge case for everything. And so some of my favorite companies are in the hardware space. I'm always super excited to see what companies like Figure and a lot of the like home robotics companies end up coming with. Just because, man, I think that market's massive, and it's only a matter of time where a lot of the home tasks like cleaning and sweeping hopefully get automated by robots soon.
Can't wait. Can't wait. Uh, my wife just spent the last hour cutting fruit and cleaning fruit. How cool would it be if we had a little
Yeah,
Figure bot or an Optimus helping us around the house with the kids and stuff? I'd love that. Changing diapers.
exactly.
Oh, way too many diapers. Okay, so take us into your, I guess, like your aha moment around AI. I know for a lot of people it was like the ChatGPT moment. For you, was it much earlier? I mean, I imagine you playing with this stuff so early that maybe you, I don't know, just curious about your story, and when did you have like that kind of skies partying, angels singing moment with AI?
Yeah, I would say, yeah, I knew about ChatGPT before its public launch, just because the first time I actually heard about OpenAI, they used to write a bunch of papers in software, and they tried to make they were always obsessed with AI. And I mean, the first time I heard about them, they were trying to make AI play a video game better than a human. And I just happened to play the same game and be in sort of the gaming space. So it was kind of the first time I saw and heard of them.
Which game was that? Sorry, I'm curious.
It was Dota. So it
Interesting,
was like
interesting.
this. It's this online 5v5 player. They tried to have this AI play this game better than actual other players, and it ended up working out. And it brought a lot of attention to them. Not as much attention as they have now, but in the gaming community, is super super interesting. And this was, yeah, probably a couple of years before ChatGPT. And then also my older brother at the time, he was working in the AI space, and he actually tried out ChatGPT with one. It was the model. And so I think this is about a year and a half before they eventually started releasing to the public, and it was really good. But it was sort of awful. But I tried it out, and as soon as I think you try it out, you can kind of sense like, okay, wait, yeah, if this gets really good, this is super cool and definitely world changing. And then sort of building with it, I think the aha moment came when the ChatGPT API released for a lot of builders. Because before, you could access it through the web and do it for daily tasks, but like actually starting to build products on top of that infrastructure. When that API released when I was in college, I mean, I think I started probably 4 different apps that week of like AI personal therapist. Can I have it automatically make Reddit stories for me? And then I think the one that caught fire is we connected it to Google Slides API, and we had it made like custom slide decks for other students to sort of send slide decks to get internships of saying like, hey, this is why I'm a really good fit. This is why I want to come and work for you, Sunny. And here's a slide deck. And this is before people realized, oh, ChatGPT can do this stuff. And it worked really well. And that was kind of the first idea we had that started working really, really well.
Cool. So keep inching forward. So a big part
Yeah.
of why I do these podcasts and what I'm trying to capture and share with people is you get excited about a tech, and then here you are today building a company around it, right? So kind of help people connect the dots. Like, how do you go from A to B?
Yeah, yeah. I think it's like any entrepreneurial phase. Usually, your first idea isn't the one you end up sort of working on, and that was definitely the case for us. There's always still micro pivots in the company of figuring out, what's the sort of absolute truth in this space. And so when I had this, ChatGPT mixed with um, Google Slides, there was a couple of problems with that sort of company. First off, students are really broke; they're not really willing to pay for anything, so it's virtually very hard to have a business when you're selling to students. And so that we had a major pivot where we started saying, okay, let's sell this to sales teams. Can sales teams use this, and send slide decks and kind of engage customers? And so we worked with actually a couple SMBs implementing this tech, and it moved the needle a little bit. It works a little bit, but the big sort of lesson we had of like sitting down and actually like taking sales calls with these sales teams and like hopping on the phones is that most times there's no magic combination of words that you can have to force someone to buy a product they don't actually want. If you're actually calling someone or emailing someone, they have the problem. Usually, as long as they understand what you're selling, like they'll either engage if they want it or no, like I'm good. There's no sort of way to convince them into buying something they don't need. And that I'd say would made our sort of biggest and final pivot, where we said, okay, instead of using AI to write the copy and automate the work, let's have AI automate the research and then make the work a lot more meaningful. So having AI scrape a lot of the internet, figure out everything about this person, and try to predict, are they going to buy this product, etc. And then from that, give the best sort of prospects to these sales teams. And that sort of caught fire, where it was super helpful for the sales teams. And I think all of them were super excited about just saving time. And as you've been in sales, I think a lot of times you hear a lot of no's, and hopefully we can reduce the amount of no salespeople here. And also, I've been sold to a lot. Hopefully, reduce a lot of the spam emails I get as well.
So maybe just take us to like the promised land here. So what is it? So if, let's say, someone listening to this goes to your website, signs up, pays
Yeah.
you, like what is the outcome? Is it just like a calendar full of meetings with their ICP and Bob's their uncle, like, or is it, I don't know, like break it down a little bit in terms of like what's
Yeah.
actually
So
happening?
totally. Right now, it's actually free to try at OrangeSlice.ai. And basically, you go into the platform and you just type what a perfect customer looks like for you. And the platform will go out and find all those customers, and being as descriptive as possible of saying, like, oh, I'm Sunny. I'm looking for people to interview for my podcast. I like people in robotics, AI, crypto, etc. that maybe have started a company or worked at one of the big companies, etc. And it'll kind of populate and find all those people for you. And we don't do any of the sales outreach, to clarify, just because I think that's like an art of selling. Some people, prefer to go to conferences. Some people are, steak dinner experts and take a lot of their clients out to dinners. And so for us, we just try to help the first stage of any company getting started is finding the actual people you need to talk to.
And I mean, do you mind sharing a bit more? Like, oh, so I mean, the pink
Yeah.
elephant in my mind right now is like, dude, I'll just use ChatGPT myself. Like,
Yeah.
where do you guys, like, what layer are you like how do you add value, I guess, beyond just, us typing away on ChatGPT?
Yeah, so I think that for the biggest hurdle, it's just not optimized for the use case. So like we have a database of 800 million people, and we can kind of keep pulling more and more people. Because you've been doing this show long. I'm sure if you were to ask ChatGPT, hey, I'm looking for people that are interesting in this space, it'll come to a point where it starts regurgitating answers, right? And it'll say, oh, try out this person. It's like, oh, you told me that same person sort of 10 prompts ago. And so for us, we're actually not too much of I'd say a chat GPT sort of product. We're actually more like a database data provider product of we collect and scrape all this information on people and then sort of serve it up to you guys for you to use. And the way we sort of use AI is not in the actual product, but it's actually how we get the data. As we think AI is like super, super great at scraping and ingesting massive amounts of information, but it's usually not that great, I think, at sort of sifting through and extracting really great insights. So we build sort of custom in-house algorithms for that.
But is the UI UX a bit like ChatGPT, or is it a database, like a spreadsheet type of thing?
It's both. So it's a chat that fills a spreadsheet. Because we sort of love spreadsheets and the UI of that, but we love the usability of having operating a platform through a chat box. I hate to have to learn where buttons are, how to do things. And so it's a completely like agentic platform where every action you can take in the platform, you can just ask the chat and the chat will do it for you. If it's clicking a button, filling the spreadsheet, etc.
So at Orange Slice, if I'm not mistaken, you guys hit 50K MRR in just a month and a half. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So that's like, I mean, I probably talk with 15 CEOs of startups a day, and I gotta admit, that's insane velocity. What's clicking with customers right now, and what's driving that kind of growth?
Yeah, I would say two things. The first is just how easy to use the platform is. I think a lot of tooling and it is getting sort of more complicated, more powerful it becomes, which is great. People want more powerful tools, but having our tools so accessible because everyone types and everyone writes. So that being the barrier to entry to using our tool is kind of been a super driving force in a lot of our growth. And then also I'd say how powerful the tool is. So like it's not because usually for product you kind of trade features for complexity. If I add more features, the product gets a bit more complex, harder to use. But for us, I think we have this, especially with our interface and our design, we have this great sort of product where we can keep adding more and more features, make it super, super powerful, and it's still as simple to use as just typing in a chat box what you want. And so that's kind of, I think, been the two really key things for us, having a super powerful tool that's just super easy to use that a lot of people sort of were drawn to.
So I read that Paul Graham was one of your, first angel investors. How on earth did that happen? And maybe share a little bit about that story.
Yeah, Paul Graham, the founder of YC, was actually our first angel investor, and we got some, I'd say, cryptic email from I think it's PG at ycombinator.com, and we were like, oh, okay, what is this email? And he's like, hey guys, would love to invite you over to my house. Heard great things about you, just for like office hours to talk. And so we were like, okay, is this even real? I didn't even realize that he does this sort of thing, or just like cold emails people. But even Paul Graham cold emails people still to this day. So yeah, it definitely works. And we said yes. We went over to his hot house. We kind of talked about the company, the vision we had for it, and he was kind of super excited by it. And I think our unique take in the sales space of not sending more emails, not sending more outreach, and having AI do that work, but having AI sort of predict who's going to buy things and being this sort of middleman of the economy of how we can connect to more deals at a higher velocity and quicker. So he was really inspired and I think really energetic about the idea. And he said basically after the office hours, I don't know if you guys are raising, but I would love to sort of throw in an angel check. I think this is something really cool that I hope just exists in the future. And that was kind of our first check, which was sent us off to the races.
When was this?
This was back in July, so 6 months ago.
So PG's still sending out cold emails and grinding in the background. That's so inspirational. Hey, I had like a bazillion questions lined up. I feel like we could do a bunch of episodes together, but I want to be mindful of your calendar as well. But is there anything else I don't know you think you would want to share with Vihaar from, let's say, 5 years ago? Any parting wise words of wisdom? Like I said, if you're down, I'd love to have you back on and maybe we can rip through some of the other questions. But yeah, this has been very, very interesting for me.
Yeah, no, always happy to sort of come back, Sonny. And I'd say looking back 5 years ago, it's always so hard because life changes so fast. And I'm sure you were to talk to a younger version of yourself. I don't know if he would even think, oh, I would have my own crypto AR robotics show. And so the always thing I like to say is, I think the biggest thing I've learned in the past couple of years is sort of action creates information. There's only so much learning you can do, and sometimes you just have to go out and do something. And at least for me and my sort of growth story, a lot of it was just doing and failing behind the scenes. And then eventually, people really don't see the 8 times it failed; they see the one success. So it is. I would tell my younger self to just kind of keep failing, even though it's super disheartening. It's part of the process.
Well, I feel like we might be brothers from different mothers. My favorite quote is by Vinod Khosla, which is success matters, failure is inconsequential. So Vihaar, great interview. Thanks for your time. Maybe just hang back for a few seconds. Thank you all for tuning in. And I'll be sure to include Vihaar's website and contact information. Is LinkedIn kind of the best place for people to ping you, or Twitter?
Yeah. LinkedIn is definitely a preferred platform. I'm super active on there.
Perfect. Sounds good. Thank you, everyone.